Welcome everyone to Launch Week. It's great to be here with you. Thanks for joining us. You know, we're coming off a year when software literally broke the world. Flights were grounded, surgeries cancelled, and the music stopped. Turns out we're no longer just building software, we're building experiences that power our everyday lives. When critical software fails, it's not just an inconvenience, it disrupts everything. And for the developer, a failed release can mean weeks spent firefighting, triaging, troubleshooting to identify the root cause. Instead of innovating, instead of creating new features, they're fixing old problems. And it takes a toll on our creativity, our morale, our productivity. In fact, a recent study found 67% of developers have either quit a job or know someone who's quit a job because of the constant pressure of dealing with some of these mistakes. And for users, the impact's even more direct. Bad releases breaks user trust, and it can have massive impact on your reputation. Now, it's not just bugs or features that don't work as expected, it's the experience that impact the whole ability to use your product. Users don't care about the technical complexities behind the scenes. They want a seamless user experience. Brands have so little room for error. Customers have less tolerance around instability, and engineering teams have almost no space for outdated approaches. For too long, we've been following an outdated playbook. It's time for some new rules. First, let's take a look at the old adage, move fast and break things. At the time in 2014 in this internal memo by Facebook, it really was a core notion, this notion that we needed to get stuff out there into the world, to iterate, to respond to customers and improve our services. And in a world where you have to make trade-offs between speed and breaking things, you choose speed. But what if you can have your cake and eat it in this modern world? What if you don't need to make that trade-off? I'd like to propose a new rule. Move fast, break nothing. What if you could build safe release mechanisms into the release process itself? Like progressive rollouts to a subset of users and rollbacks. Catching issues before they become widespread outages. And what if you could experiment with small cohorts and get statistically relevant and valid results without burdening your entire user base? Major outages, poor customer experiences will be a thing of the past. Are you ready for that new future? Rule number 2, monitor everything everywhere. Now it turns out over the last decade, observability has evolved a lot. We took observability of big infrastructure right down to the application level in APM. And the monitoring space has matured. But if it's so great, why are we still shipping buggy software? Because we're using the wrong framing. We know that one of the biggest drivers of outages is actually software changes. In fact, it accounts for the majority of outages that customers experience. And the thing that's affecting those tens of millions of users is often because of self-inflicted wounds because of software changes. So I'd like to propose a new rule. Monitor every release, watch every app. Turns out we have to monitor inside software runtime, so we can see the experience of the thing that matters the most, the users. Why don't we catch those bugs sooner in the process of part of a progressive rollout instead of at the point where every single user is inflicted by them? This is what release observability is all about. Not just the exhaust fumes, but coming right there into the software release itself, so that we can narrow the focus onto those essential metrics and the error triggers, teams giving a clearer insight right there into the release itself, so you can spot those bugs before they become pervasive issues. Rule number 3. Proceed with caution on your AI projects. That seems to be the prevailing sentiment right now. In fact, I talked to one of the biggest banks in the world just earlier this week, and they told me that they have a backlog of AI projects. They're in a regulated industry. They have a conservative notion of what they need to ship out into the world, and they're applying huge rigor to their AI projects. Why? AI has this special quality. It has a non-deterministic nature. You're not quite sure what you're going to get until you push volume through this. And those AI hallucinations, they're very real, and they can actually lead to stray customer experiences. Moreover, AI, you need to constantly change to the new models. You need to constantly tune those prompts, constantly change those configurations. It's a bit of a departure from pushing software out into the world and forgetting about it. In fact, I heard of one recent example where a socially conscious chatbot decided it was going to start offering discounts at its own will to any passenger that had a large grumble. But the reality is, companies of every size in every industry are in an AI race. Because Gen AI features are critically becoming the way that you're going to differentiate and create those first-class user experiences. Every company is a software company, and every software experience is rapidly becoming an AI experience. So we need a new rule here. Move fast on AI, but break nothing. What if you could progressively roll out those AI capabilities to target segments? What if you could only proceed to full rollout when you've met performance thresholds and cost thresholds? What if you could experiment with your prompts and model configurations at runtime? Well, it turns out now you can. And in just a few minutes, our CPTO, Claire Vaux, is going to show you just how to do that. Rule number 4. Now this is a real gem. We used to have this old adage for engineering teams: if you built it, you own it. And the concept here was simple. You're responsible for the quality of everything that you ship. And this is a great notion. But what I would argue, in today's world, it's not sufficient for only the engineering teams to be caring about the quality of code. Because it turns out, as every company is a software company, every business is reliant upon the stability and the reliability of the applications that they ship. So why is it just the purview of the software engineers? No, it's time for a new rule. Great code is led, not just written. Business leaders need to be responsible for the release of their software. If it really is the case that they see their businesses as application businesses, then they need to understand the release processes. They need to understand whether they're following best practices in production and reducing the blast radius and negative consequences of shipping bad code. So let's take a breath and summarize these old rules and the new paradigms that the future beholds. In the old rule, move fast and break things. We had this notion that you should ship everything all at once to all users without gradual rollouts and controls. In the new rule, we move fast and we break nothing. We don't have to make the trade-offs between safety and speed. In the old world, you would monitor absolutely everything, and you'd glean those insights far too late into the release process. In the new rule, you monitor the release and you watch every app, so that you're monitoring those metrics as you progressively roll out software, and you fix them and roll back before they affect all of your users. In the old rule, you had the abundance of caution on all your AI projects. You were moving slow so that you didn't have that risk. But what if there was a new rule? Move fast on your AI projects and have the confidence that you're going to break nothing. You could accelerate those AI applications with the knowledge and comfort that you're doing so with safe release practices. And in the old rule, you built it, you own it. But in the new rule, great code is led, not just written. Successful companies realize that the release of software is everybody's responsibility, all the way up to the CEO. So if we look at these 4 rules, really they're the 4 rules for de-risking your software releases. And today we're going to talk about how LaunchDarkly is delivering guarded releases. Guarded releases is our way of encapsulating those 4 rules in our platform. At its core, it's a release strategy that allows you to ship with confidence and manage your risk proactively rather than reactively. It's a way for teams to move fast and break nothing by monitoring every release, fixing those issues before they become outages. And it allows business leaders to have the transparency into those metrics around your code releases. So let's walk through what is a guarded release. Well, first we need to lay the foundation. LaunchDarkly's tradition comes from feature management. This was our starting point to enable teams to control rollouts. We introduced feature flags that allowed us to control features across more than 25 languages. We introduced progressive rollouts to minimize those issues and scale with stability and minimize the blast radius of issues. We had advanced targeting for tailoring those experiences by user, by device, or by region. And we had runtime configuration changes to control user experiences without a deploy. And all of this had instant rollback, so within milliseconds you could revert those features instantly. Guarded releases builds on that foundation, bringing proactive risk management. With guarded releases you can protect every user from bad code. So let's break it down. The first core concept of a guarded release is performance thresholds. You can set performance, latency, and availability thresholds to catch issues early. This gives you a safety net, ensuring that releases don't progress until you've passed those thresholds. Respond to those errors in milliseconds with application auto-remediation, so that when those performance thresholds are breached, that you can automatically roll back to the last known good state. Next, get end-to-end visibility into the entire risk and health of your releases with real-time insights into regressions and their resolution status with release monitoring. And finally, when issues do pop up, you want to be precise. You don't want to waste time searching for the root cause. You want to debug issues and quickly inspect and triage errors and user experience at the feature level with error monitoring. This is guarded releases. Guarded releases allow you to ship faster, but with control and confidence. So there you have it. Every release should be a guarded release, but I'm sure, like me, you want to see this in action. So why don't we dive into our product right here with Claire Vaux, our Chief Product and Technology Officer. Over to you, Claire.
Thanks, Dan. Let's take a look at how you can use LaunchDarkly to guard your releases from risk and safely accelerate software development. We're all good developers, and we do our best to get code out that's technically sound and good for the business. But it doesn't always work out, and bad shit happens. It wasn't that long ago that we were watching the news with a pretty big example of this. Blue screens everywhere, families sitting in airports for days because all systems were down. So bad that people couldn't board flights or get their work done. Yikes. I bet the story feels familiar. You're the head of engineering and you're shipping a ton of things all the time. Sure, you get a little credit when things go right and out on time, but most of your time you spend worrying about the downsides of a bad release. A perfect example of the you build it, you own it rule, especially when things go wrong. Those downsides could be outages impacting customers or even hitting the news. Your team is complaining that velocity can't improve because they're so busy managing this complex system. Everything is reactive. You, as the leader or VP, are trying to keep eyes on everything, but your team is drowning in a sea of reports and dashboards every time you ship software, and there's so much noise from your observability data that the signal of real issues gets lost. When something does go wrong, the first people to tell you are your support team, or even worse, your customers. With guarded releases, that's all changing. The first thing we're bringing into the LaunchDarkly platform is the ability to add any metric to track performance and release monitoring. Let's see what that looks like. Adding these metrics is simple, using the same LaunchDarkly SDKs you use today for releases and experimentation. You can define important metrics and measures like latency, errors, or even flights booked for that airline we were talking about, right in the LaunchDarkly UI. But we don't want to create yet another point of noise. Instead, LaunchDarkly does something different and provides a laser-focused way of monitoring the metrics that matter during the most important time, a release. So what if you're that airline releasing a new flight status system to enable faster booking of flights for your end users? With guarded releases, that's easy. We set up our feature flag and choose to guard our release. I care about the latency of request because I want our system to be fast. I want to know if the system is crashing from errors, and most of all, if people are successfully booking flights. This flow is the most sensitive part of our workflow because if it goes down, I'm going to see it on the news. Blue screens, family camping out, no thank you. We can choose to use the regression safe out-of-the-box configuration, or if we expect a certain level of performance change, we can account for that. I'm going to go ahead and set a 5% tolerance for increase in latency, but leave my threshold for errors and decreases in flight books at 0. We can use the default monitoring duration of 24 hours, which will automatically configure a progressive rollout for our release. No more impacting all our users at once. We're going to ship this to percentages of users at a time automatically. I'm going to go ahead and save and start my release. And just like that, we're guarding our rollout. I immediately start seeing real-time performance updates on our new status feature, and everything looks good. I can walk away from my desk and know that LaunchDarkly is measuring the release at every stage, and I'll be alerted if anything goes wrong. So I walk away, and of course, right when I get away, I get a PagerDuty notification that error rates are climbing. LaunchDarkly is detecting a regression against the status API metric we connected earlier. With one click, we can see a dashboard clearly showing what went wrong, and with a single click, I can roll back completely. Outage mitigated. No more redeployment and merge hell to try to get back up and running. The change is rolled back instantly. And I can jump into troubleshooting without worrying about the customer impact. If that wasn't easy enough, on the next run, I decide to configure auto remediation for automatic rollbacks. So by the time you get that PagerDuty notification, the buggy feature is already recovered. No button click necessary. But look, we all know that getting rid of the outage is only the start of solving the problem. The immediate next question is, what actually caused this, and how do I fix it? The typical workflow here is digging around different tools, looking at observability data, and calling your best engineers to try to figure out which PR and what happened. None of it is linked together, and it takes time you don't have to figure out the answer. Guarded releases lets us recover instantly from the outage, but what about finding the root cause? With integrated error monitoring, LaunchDarkly lets you quickly correlate the bugs that we caught with errors, the users that they're impacting, and the volume. I can see that error rates started climbing in my guarded release, and I also saw them climb here in error monitoring. When I pop into this error, I can quickly see a stack trace and breadcrumbs on how users experience this issue, along with what feature flags were active at the time. Surprise, surprise, that issue we had earlier, the flag was on and was related to this error. I can also quickly view a session replay for this session and see the exact experience the user was having in the system. I now know exactly what the front-end experience was for the individual users and can experience the errors they were receiving myself. This whole toolkit gives me everything I need to triage and debug an incident. It's all about improving developer efficiency. We want to coexist with your observability data, but make it a lot more efficient. Lower stress, context-rich, and giving you a strong view into exactly what happened, all the way down to the engineering level. All of this together gives you a layer of protection to help safeguard every release, recover quickly from bugs, troubleshoot root cause, and understand your end user's experience, so you can get shit done. But don't just take our word for it. Let's hear from Thomas Schlegel from Built about how his team is thinking about guarded releases.
Thanks, Claire. Hi, I'm Thomas Schlegel, VP of Engineering at Built Technologies. At Built, we're in the business of simplifying complex workflows for construction, finance, and payments. Our teams work hard to earn our customers' trust, and our customers rely on our software to operate their business. We owe it to ourselves and to our customers to ensure we're shipping quickly and reliably. But here's the challenge. As organizations grow and scale, releases become more intricate and risky. This can leave teams in firefighting mode after issues have already impacted customers, or create bottlenecks and slow releases down to a crawl. That's why I'm excited about the new era for LaunchDarkly. Guarded releases have real integrated metrics right into the release process. They also offer immediate rollback capabilities. This is going to help not only ensure that we continue to ship quickly, but also help make our releases more reliable. I've enjoyed our partnership so far and look forward to continuing to build world-class software with LaunchDarkly.
Thanks, Thomas. Next, let's talk a little bit more about how to ensure that your whole team is adopting best practices for releasing software safely. Now, as the head of engineering, I'm responsible for all my team's shipping features. I want to understand better if my teams are adopting best practices to keep releases safe. Are they using progressive rollouts? Are they targeting? Are they creating metrics and measuring their releases? How fast are they recovering from outages? To answer these questions, LaunchDarkly is excited to announce the Launch Insights dashboard, which gives teams an overall view into the risk management features of LaunchDarkly. You can now log in and quickly view how your teams are adopting the best practices associated with risk-free releases. This includes how they're guarding releases, how the metrics are being measured, and how many experiments are running in these projects. We can immediately see overall scores for our environment and dive into every project in the organization and see scores for them as well, with fine-grained detail into how we're adopting these capabilities. These are directly represented as scores that you can use to understand how mature or safe your environment is. Additionally, we can see critical lifecycle items like flag archival and trends of the users who are adopting these best practices across my account. For example, I see Lydia. Lydia is doing great at de-risking her releases, so she's someone I want to talk to help up-level the rest of our teams. I can also quickly see trends and other best practice adoption across my organization. I can take this data and give clear guidance to my teams on what areas we need to improve to keep our releases safe. Again, it's about making teams more efficient by giving them clear ways to improve their software release process. As our teams adopt processes like progressive rollout, guarded rollouts, and experimentation, we can see our scores quickly begin to improve. This kind of insight really helps the engineering leader manage best practices in their organization and know exactly how to operationally scale risk-free releases in their environments. But that's not all. Today, I'm also excited to announce LaunchDarkly's newest product, AI Configs, to help engineering teams build and release GenAI features with the right tools so they can do it quickly and safely. In other words, move fast without breaking anything. AI is undeniably shaping how software is developed and deployed. As someone who builds software with AI myself, I can see this firsthand. It's also introducing new challenges that we've heard about from our customers. That's because, as Dan mentioned earlier, AI outputs are non-deterministic. They require constant iteration to dial in the right model, the right prompt, the right configuration, and give your users the best experience. But iterating on prompt and model configs by updating them in code requires constant redeploying, and it doesn't make it very accessible for teammates like product managers who need to contribute to these products. And once you've released a feature powered by GenAI, you need to make further tweaks to account for any underlying changes in performance, new foundation models, or unexpected behavior. It's not enough to just develop a great app. You need to ensure it behaves as expected, in real time, on an ongoing basis. So what's your plan if something goes wrong? Plus, the pace of innovation is rapid and going faster every day. We're seeing new models, new tools, and new strategies being introduced. Companies that are not leveraging AI and not leveraging it well risk falling behind. Moving slowly and cautiously is increasingly not an option. I know this for sure. That's why our team at LaunchDarkly built AI Configs, a way for AI teams to accelerate AI releases by managing prompt and model configs at runtime, choose to release different configurations to different audiences, monitor key metrics related to their AI consumption, and roll back or even turn the feature off if something goes wrong. Let's say I'm building an AI-powered agent to help customers troubleshoot their most common order questions. As a user, when I go into the LaunchDarkly application, I now see the option to create an AI config. This lands me on a page where I can create and manage multiple versions of my prompt and model config for this feature that I'm building. I'm working on an order resolution agent for automated support, so I go ahead and create an AI config for that product. It's so helpful to be able to select my model from a list of drop-down options and know that I can also create my own model configuration. For now, I'm going to go with GPT-4o. Next, I type in my system prompt, and LaunchDarkly automatically renders the markdown in a way that's easy for me to read and tweak if needed. It's now easy to replace that huge chunk of code, prompts, and configs in my early version with simple code that makes all that AI configuration dynamic and able to be managed in the LaunchDarkly UI. Now that I have 2 versions created, it's time for me to release this to my users, and I'm actually going to do a 50-50 split to gauge which one performs better. Just like that, my order resolution chatbot is now live in production and helping users. Since this was my first GenAI feature at the company, I'm understandably a little nervous, which is why it's really cool I can monitor the critical metrics of my application directly within LaunchDarkly, thanks to the native metric support in our SDKs like Python and JavaScript. I can see that the Gemini Pro model has lower user ratings than GPT-4o. Token usage is higher in 4o, but it seems like users like the more comprehensive responses. So I go ahead and roll back the Gemini option and only serve users their preferred model. As new models come to market, I can switch, test, and optimize between them to maximize my customer experience. Thanks to LaunchDarkly, I was able to build, manage, and roll out my first GenAI feature in less than an hour and de-risk every aspect of its release. I know that if anything goes wrong, LaunchDarkly is here to protect my end user experience, so AI can stop being too scary to deploy in production and start delighting your customers. So let's recap. We just covered AI configs, and before that, we showed you Launch Insights, which helps you understand how your team is adopting best practices and gives you ideas on how to operationally scale risk-free releases in your environment. At the start of the demo, I covered how you can set application performance thresholds, monitor every release, auto-remediate issues, and use feature-level error monitoring and session replay to guard your releases. To learn more about the products I talked about today, visit our launch blogs at the LaunchDarkly website. Back to you, Dan.
We've certainly packed a bunch of innovation into Launch Week to help take the risk out of software releases. Thank you to Thomas as well for sharing those moments of insight around how his team's using guarded releases. And tomorrow we'll pick up the conversation with a fireside chat between myself and James Governor of RedMonk, who really amongst the developer community is a hero. And he's going to talk about how we stop bad shit from happening as an industry and what are some of the best practices that modern enterprises should be following. Then on Thursday, join us for our Code Jam and Talking Ship workshop, where you can get your hands on all of the innovations that you've seen this week. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.